right. We're going to wait till we get some people on. Well, oh well. Isn't it interesting? All right, I'm just going to get started. If you join me halfway in, this will be rebroadcast, and a special update episode will be put into the podcast on all of my platforms that I'm currently on. I hope everybody had a great weekend this weekend. I ended up with a good day today. One of my new sponsors, Backdrop, showed up today, but I did not have time to get it set up and put up. So we're going to keep the Black American flag up for tonight. I started this broadcast because I had an episode when I was on YouTube only. One of my episodes got pulled down because I'd said something about the pandemic that was unfavorable, apparently. And it was reported by a Karen. Now, poor Karen lost, because when I asked in the email to show me the science, and said I gave out false information, which I didn't give out any information. I just said, you do you. It doesn't matter. And that ended up getting bad. So, that's how that went. I am looking at all the stuff that I've been getting. From overseas. I'm getting, for some reason, the people overseas apparently really either A, like my accent, or B, they're really, really interested in American politics and nursing home care. I don't really understand what. But I mean, we've got that going on. And I'm kind of excited. I have got listeners now in the Middle East, which is pretty neat. They're interactive. They have sent stuff to my email because they can see it. Yeah, it's getting super popular. But I just finished watching the Rocket Magnolia Customs live that they had tonight on Facebook. It was awesome. Watching somebody create stuff, to me now, as a creator myself, one of the best things that I've done in a while. Watching people do the things they enjoy doing to relax and calm down is great for them. I get relaxed watching them have a great time doing what they actually like to do, love to do as a hobby. She sent me my 20-ounce tumbler this weekend. I used it all weekend while I worked. I worked 24 of the last 36 hours, and it had coffee in it the whole time. So you'll see the website mentioned in the comment section. Click it, and you can go straight to her page. Go visit it and see if you want anything made for yourself, and just you may just want to buy something that she has pre-made, because she has some of that on there too. So just take your time and do that. Let's redo this podcast that got pulled and see if this one gets pulled. I'm going to tell you a story about a lady that it's her mother's story. I've been in the field now, long-term care field, a long time. I actually enjoy it. Bedside nursing in the hospital, you don't see them long anymore. So it's pretty fast. You get to see them for like maybe 3 days, and you may not work the same unit anymore, so you don't get to see that anything that you're doing is making a difference. If you're lucky enough to, it's great. But that's why I do long-term care, because I can actually see that I'm making a difference and telling a difference. But this lady had her mother in a facility for 15 years, I think she said, or 13 years, 13, 15 years. Said that anything that happened with her mother, they would call her with new orders. They would call her with order changes, even just simple as time changes, or they would call her for problems they thought would happen. And she thought everything was fine. She hadn't heard from them in a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden she got a 3 a.m. call from the emergency room, the nurse and the doctor. Then this was before the pandemic. This was way before the pandemic. She got a call from the emergency room, and she learned that her mom had super severely dehydrated. The ER doc told her this did not just happen. I believe she's probably been without water and food for the last 3 or 4 days. That is indicative of a problem nobody wants to talk about, and that's staffing in a facility. The lady passed away a few hours after that phone call was made. And when they did the investigation, I mean, she ended up suing because another lady in that same facility died from the same thing within the same time frame of her mother. And they had taken these CNAs and everything to court and deposition and get their statements. And despite the pleas by these nursing assistants to their nurses, they claimed that the nurse really did do anything, that there wasn't anything it could do. The problem that nursing homes and really all medical facilities had during the pandemic, all those problems were exacerbated. But what had happened was it brought out the point of the poor conditions in a ton of nursing homes nationwide. But all that was going on before COVID-19. They're going to keep going on unless we make some major changes in the field. There's opportunity to do a lot right now, because there are a lot of eyes paying attention to everything. I saw on the news where they were talking about this $320 billion cut from the Medicare CMS for nursing homes. Part of that is the death factor. They keep saying, oh, it's because we overpaid everybody 5%. Well, all we did was follow the rules CMS set out for the new PP payment system, paper performance system. And we knew how to chart, just wasn't required of us to chart. And then now we chart by exception, so all we do is put in all the pertinent information, and we capture a lot of charges that way. But my big concern is, with such an opportunity to change the field that we're into right now, as things kind of go back to normal, some of these upper people in these corporations and stuff, they're going to say, oh, well, let's go back to business as usual. Business as usual wasn't working before the pandemic. Business as usual didn't work during the pandemic. And business as usual ain't going to be working after either. We don't need to create some rose-colored glasses that think that we're going to see some better. We're going to make some real changes in the industry. It's going to have to be made right now. Can't wait. Ain't no time to study. These corporate offices, and I'm going to get to them, in just a few minutes. I had mentioned that in one of my shows I talked about the five things in Maslow's hierarchy of needs that all humans have to have, and how they're using that to take over the gross domestic product. But in every and I talked on Saturday show on nursing suicide and how it's on the rise, and we're going to have to do something about that, and we've got to come up with something to do that. There's those models, 7, 8, 6 models that they do these studies on. So I came up with 5 things we're going to have to change dramatically to change the long-term care field. I'm going to talk about staffing. I'm going to talk about the funding system with CMS. I'm going to talk about how the corporate structure system of nursing homes, and this is why the video got pulled. In reality, was because on the podcast I did got pulled was because I was talking about how the government in one episode, how CMS washes their money and how they get it back. This is how these businesses, corporate models work. Nobody wants this secret out. People know. There's no guarantee, though, that I know what I'm talking about. The problem is once you start looking into it, and all these, what we see on TV shows they call ghost and shell companies, this is the stuff I'm talking about. It's a corporate structure. Because you can't really get back money that's never there. And I'll explain how that works. We do have some oversight, but we have a lack of oversight. What we have is a lack of enforcement of the rules, not oversight. These surveyors have their job to do, and they do it. They go make the specialty visits in the facilities on complaints, and they do stuff like that. The problem is the enforcement of what they find is not there. It can be gotten around, and we're going to talk about that. And the other is the industrialized medicine buildings that we currently have ain't working anymore, and I'll explain that too in some detail. Chronic staffing shortages in the nursing homes have stretched all of the nurses and CNAs and housekeepers and dietitians and just about anybody that works in the long-term care industry is taking their staff and taking them to a breaking point. Specifically the frontline workers. It's like, let's talk about CNAs for a minute. CNA's work is the most difficult work in a hospital or a long-term care facility or a rehabilitation center. The problem is they get paid less. Their job's the most important. They're the actual extension of the hands of the nurse that's working on the patient, getting their medicines ready and all that. The CNA's providing what's called a daily care activity. But they get them a shower, they get them dressed, they get them up in a chair, they make sure they're not soiled, they make rounds on them every hour to 2 hours every day, 24 hours a day. These cats are doing their job. I've said 100 times before, if my CNA comes to me and tells me her blood pressure's up again, she's getting dizzy when she stands up, or I'm going to say, okay, well, just go get a blood pressure and see, because that CNA knows their resident well. They're just coming to make sure they're seeing what they're seeing by asking the nurse. But when a CNA comes to me and says they're not acting right, that's when I get started. That's when I stop whatever it is I'm doing and go see, because that's never a good statement to ever come out of a CNA's mouth, especially if you trust them. Specifically, if you trust them. As soon as you hear it, they don't even finish the sentence before you should be up and gone to whatever room they're talking about. But when you're paying, the national average pay for a CNA across the country is $13.72 an hour. We pay people more to flip hamburgers or take chicken breast out of a grease, except on Sundays when they take the day off. When you got that, you've got the amount of work they do, and you've got a low pay rate. I can't imagine a CNA they only make around $28,000 a year just on base salary at an average rate of $13.72 an hour. About $28,450 to $28,500 a year. That's nothing, people. That's just right above the poverty line. I don't know how they do it, and some of them are single parents, and I don't get it. And we're not paying them what they're worth at all. You're not paying any healthcare person what they're worth. I want to explain how that works in a minute. But when you got pay rates like that, and you're not willing to fix them, you're going to have turnover rates. Turnover rate is the amount of employees that flip through the system in a certain amount of time. Long-term carers usually do their average for a year. There's a CMS. I'm tired. I've been a busy weekend, and I apologize for that. There were some facilities in a report done a few years ago it was the year before the pandemic. It was in 2019, and the report came out just as this COVID stuff started. And some of these facilities had a 100% turnover rate in a calendar year. That means the entire staff from top to bottom completely is new every year. There were a bunch, I say a bunch because we're not talking about a lot. I mean, we got 337 million people population. We have around 11,000 nursing homes. That's still not a lot of buildings, and it's not a lot. There are some buildings that have the distinct honor of being run so poorly that their turnover rate turns over every 4 months. 100% every 4 months. That means that's a 300% staff turnover rate a year. They have a whole new staff every 4 months because we don't pay the direct caregivers enough money. Here's the problem with that. They're women, and I'm not saying these are excuses, but here's the when you find things that are common, a pattern will develop. And this is on my research. What I found is that the direct caregivers, let's talk about the CNAs and the feeder techs and patient care techs. They're usually women. They're usually people of color and immigrants, and they're overlooked at what they do. They're giving direct care to your mom, your dad, your uncle, your brother, your sister, you. Because when you're not paying them enough and you've got indirects, you don't have enough direct staffing, inadequate staffing directly affects everybody paying for the system. They get poor care. They don't get to develop and maintain healthy face-to-face contact relationships with anybody because Sandra, the CNA that worked Monday, last week, she lasted a week and she quit on Tuesday, and Rebecca came in to work, and that person had just gotten comfortable with the one that was there, and here's a whole new person you're sticking in their face. Yeah, that's not healthy. I never said contract work is healthy for people, for the studios, because I'd have to take the side of the nurse on the contract work, because of what I'm talking about now affects how and why contracts are being the way they're being now. It's a natural part of what's going on in the country now. And if we don't identify and talk about the problem, then we're never going to get to fix the problem because they don't want to. I've been told that this video got pulled because of something I said about COVID that went against quote-unquote community guidelines. I never said anything about any part of the COVID thing. I'm trying to walk this fine line here because it's stupid. But it is what it is. We all know the truth. If you go in and you talk to a resident and you ask them what about the place they like or dislike, the very first thing that's going to come out of anybody's mouth, sorry about that, that's my puppy that we rescued. The very first thing they're going to talk about is the staff. The staffing, they don't have enough people. The second thing they're going to talk about is the food ain't that good. You know why the food ain't that good? Because it's industrialized medicine. I'll explain all that later in the show. but everything here is a common denominators. There's 5, and that's what we're talking about. We're right now in 1 for the people that joined us just now, and to get you kind of caught up to where we are. But I'm talking about how we don't pay the caregivers enough, how the bonjour to you too. How the inadequate staffing affects everything about your stay, even in a hospital. If there's not enough staff and there's nobody to answer your call light, and it takes 45 minutes for them to get it answered, everybody assumes it's just because there's people lazy. It's not. It's because there's no staff. While they may be in the room, it may take them 45 minutes to clean somebody up. And it used to not be an issue. We used to have rules about how long you had to answer a call light, and they talk about it all the time. But these companies want us to be able to answer a call light, where we used to require 10 people to care. Now they've got 6 people to do the same amount of care, but they want them call lights answered within 7 to 10 seconds of them coming on. There's not enough help. Screw your bottom line. Take care of the people you're in charge to take care of. The professional level, I'm talking about the nurses, licensed nurses, and the registered nursing. CMS has some staffing rules. 1 RN on duty in a nursing home for 8 consecutive hours a day. That's usually the house supervisor. It works 7 to 3. And that's all the RN care eyeballs they get. There's a method of thought to think that there should be an RN supervisor that takes no residence, is just there to put out the fires 24 hours a day. I agree, because if we have to do some kind of procedure that requires an RN to do it, if there's non-IV certified LPNs that work the building, the RN supervisor can just hang the antibiotics and deal with that. But as far as staffing right now, they have what they call a quote-unquote hours per day, but that don't give you a staffing ratio, because most facilities augment them by using staff members that don't give direct care 24 hours a day, but they spread their time from 8 hours a day over 24 hours. And they may count a therapist as part of those hours. I mean, it's not fair. Nursing should be nursing only. It should be CNAs, RNs, LPNs, period. It shouldn't have anybody else that bleeds over. There should be no administrative staff that bleeds over. The administrative staff should stay in their offices. The DON should stay in her office. If she's going to do it, if your facility is going to do it, they need to have 2 DONs, 1 administrative DON and 1 clinical DON. And that clinical DON can be during the day and an RN supervisor at night, and you rotate that out, and then you get your PRN people in on the weekends. Just do it that way. And you don't have to worry about it. You got your 4 RNs on staff, even if you're 2 on the weekend, or agency staff. If you find agency staff you like, you work a deal with the agency that you give them the time, and the ones they like get to choose from it. So that you get the nurses. It's the best review phase you can get is to have an agency or a traveler or a per diem nurse come into your shift, watch how they work. If you like them, tell the agency we want them to come on a regular basis. There can be things worked out. You worry about that. You pay the thing. You get your tax write-off through the corporate that needs the staff, and the agency nurse has a standard, steady PRN position that pays premium rates, and they don't ever go anywhere, and they become a little more passionate about what they do. So we're going to have to fix the pay. We got to fix the staffing ratios for these places. It's ageism, really and truly, for all you woke folks out there. It's ageism. You're practicing ageism. You're saying that we're going to warehouse these old people in these industrialized medical complexes. And then we're not going to give enough people, we're not going to pay enough people to take care of you. We're just going to wad you in this hole and get you by till you die. Oh no, I said it again. God almighty. If it gets pulled, y'all know why. That statement right there. Um, Inadequate staffing can only be fixed if the people from the beginning to the end take care of what's going on. Y'all understand that we have a ratio in this country, in the prison system. Inmates have a staffing ratio, and the people in long-term care facilities, nursing homes, and rehabilitation centers do not. If there's something that wakes you up, it should be that right there. The third part is the standards of care, I guess, is the best way. Let me do this first. Let me tell you how Medicaid and Medicare cover all of this, so then we can understand the rest of it. Okay, I'll put it together that way. Medicaid covers about 60% of all nursing home residents in the country, and Medicaid reimburses 70-80% of the costs of the operator. And that's from my favorite group, the American Healthcare Association. It is not my favorite group. I don't agree with them. There's just certain things, but very few things. Medicaid generally not the best payer in the world. And how nursing homes work is on what we call rehab to home, is these 20-day short-term rehabilitation stays that Medicare is the primary payer. And then on day 21, Medicaid starts paying the copay as Medicare picks up. I mean, that's how we do it. But you get 100% reimbursement for 20 days, so they're going to do the 20-day in and out, industrialized horseshoe medicine. In and out. You get them out. Hopefully you pray, or the operators pray, that they go the 20 days. They are home a little while. They get sick and they have to come back into the long-term care because this time they got an infection where they had their knee replacement done, and they're getting these souped-up antibiotics. And we can do that in a nursing home because it's so safe. I hate to tell all you people, I can do it. I can go run bank, and I can give rifampin, and I can do all the stuff it takes to take care of these MRSA infections in these joints. I can take care of a patient that has to have the joint removed and has to have the directed antibiotics sewn into their joint to get the muscle healed so they can go put in another metal joint. I can do that. I don't know if Karen that's coming in after me is going to have enough time to actually take care of a resident or understands how to take care of a resident who's getting long-term IV therapy. I always remind when I'm giving a report, remember to ask about if they got ringing in their ears, because we got to know that. I ought to know that before anything else, because that seems to be the toxicity thing that most everybody remembers and that people forget, but once you say it, it brings other information back. And Medicare pays a higher rate for those 20 days than Medicaid does. So they do a lot of rehab to home and long-term care. And I'm not saying that a lot of people don't need the rehab, the short-term stuff, rehab to home. But, it's kind of a picking field. When you do the short-term stuff, the long-term care facility gets to check out the person, and while they're in there for their short-term stay, and they want them to keep rolling through as short-termers over and over and over. Even that payment model, the way they have it set up, that's really not the problem, because all the nursing homes have to do is collectively get together through places like ACHA or AHCA and say they're not getting enough money, push the legislatures, they increase the expenditure rate And the other problem is all these for-profit facilities, they don't have to pay out of their profits either. They make these excessive profits off the backs of the poorly paid staff. Folks, as I've said before, these long-term care owners and operators pull in and holler burnout. Burnout makes it the nurse's problem. It's not the nurse's problem they're burnt out. They're burnt out because of the exploitation of the ownership of these long-term care facilities and hospitals, trying to do so much with nothing. Then they take these profits and they keep them for themselves. Let me tell you how this setup works. I'm going to explain exactly how these nursing homes are making this kind of money. These companies like Life Care Centers of America, that used to be Genesis Healthcare Corporation, those are the two big ones right now that I can think of. Life Care Centers of America, they're huge, huge. But it's like this. Here's how this, put something old, Byzantine Empire. Let's take this model that we're currently in right now is old, antiquated, industrialized, complex medicine. You got these old buildings aging in the system. They're 30, 40, 50 years old in some places. And they've been there forever. They're long hallways. Their rooms right down the hallways. They start at number 200. Everybody leaves off the 13. And you go up and down these halls, and there's two people to a room with a curtain in the middle. All that it's time to over with. They keep these industrialized medicine complex because the cost is low. They don't want to have to build a new one, but they do. And when they do it the same way, because it's like Ford's invention of the interchangeable parts. That's how they're set up. That's really how they're set up. Now nursing homes outsource their goods and services to companies. Guess what? They either control or they either own in a shell corporation, or they have, so the company has a building that's named this. And then this other company that's owned by the same people come in a different name, and they rent that building from this one. Then let's say they don't want to run the building, so they pay this administrator corporation that they own an absorbent amount of money to find them an administrator to bring into place. This way they can siphon the ownership of all these corporations. They siphon money off of profits, and the nursing homes don't get to claim it on their books. Oh, well, I had to rent the oxygen. I had to rent the beds. I had to rent this. And nobody goes back to say, oh, but you're the one that owns the rental company. You're the one that owns the administrative staffing company or their local tenants company. You can't. And when they pay them out, well, that don't count because the money went for helping take care of the old people, but it didn't go to the people that actually take care of the old people. It just went to the corporate office. And this goes on in every facility. Here's the best one. Here's the better one. There's a trend now, and I don't know who got together with these families to do it, but it's absolutely in my mind, since we're in this system right now, it's genius. It's freaking genius. That one of the family members' brothers could be a pharmacist, and one brother is the president of a long-term care company, and he sells nursing homes that's not being productive in his company to another brother, their younger brother, and he changes it, gets their name set up, and then both of those companies still use the pharmacy. So the pharmacy's getting the money for the medications, but once it leaves this facility's over here, owned by the same corporation or LLC per se, once it leaves here, for all the medicine goes to the pharmacist over here, which all goes into a big pile of money. That's going on everywhere, every region of the country. Y'all forget that once travelers talk to each other, no matter how far apart they are, the continental divide does not keep us separated in the phone. and internet make it possible for us to keep in touch 24/7, 365, and that extra day and a half on leap year. These people are pulling so much money out into these other organizations and moving as much as they can over. You cannot pay the staff members what they're actually worth and the job that they actually do. Time now for complete transparency and financial accountability. It's fine if you have to rent a bed. Who are you renting that bed from? Is there any way? Are they your family member? Because, they always want to know when you apply for jobs if you're a family member of somebody that works in another building, if somebody else is in management. But we never stop to take that a step further and ask the ownerships of these corporate offices, these other corporate buildings, if they're related to each other. Do you know each other? How do you know it? I'm talking about business relation, because it's a whole different ball game. I mean, that's how they're milking the money. It's how it's working. We need to change when they participate, say, in the federal government system, that if a building makes, let's say they have a building of 20 beds and its annual operation budget's $5 million a year. And they say, okay, we want 3/5 of that to go to staffing. So that means you got to spend $3 million a year to staff the building. That leaves $2 million to do everything else. Because if you don't do it and meet the minimum standards of care this way, then we're going to pull you out of the system for a whole year. And they don't have to have all these other cares. You can just send 2 or 3 state surveyors in. And once they get to that point, then they can start finding the problems with the care that these facilities are giving. Because I'm telling you, once you have the staff, the care will take care of itself. Also, once you have the staff and you're paying on the front end for staff, on the back end, if they're not going back to the hospital and where CMS can snatch you out and pull your money because you sent them in when they shouldn't have gone and stuff like that. So I talked about in the beginning about this lady and her mother being dehydrated and passing away. And we're talking about the surveyors and their job and what they do and why we need transparency in the payment system that we have and how the surveyors can help with that. I'm going to tell you what they did, what CMS did to the instance that I talked about earlier. I went into the CMS website, and you can find every facility, every nursing home stuff in there, and everything they've done wrong and what they said they were going to do to fix it and what was expected and when their revisit were. The CMS found that facility $77,462 for them 2 ladies that died in the same nursing home from the same diagnosis, knowing damn well that they weren't in compliance. 5 days without food and water, or 5 days without water. That means nobody took the time to feed them, A, because they didn't care, or B, because there wasn't enough staff, and I tend to go with B. So there's 2 women together's lives were worth $37,000 a piece, or $33,500 something dollars a piece. So what happened to, why aren't you charging the owners with murder instead of the nurses with murder? The nurses, true, you can't run a nursing home without nurses. But you can't run a nursing home with cheap nurses. We're not cheap anymore, folks. You CEOs, y'all can try to have me pulled again. Y'all don't like that I call you out. I've just started. Remember, once you receive funds from CMS, your stuff's public. What your company pays you a year is public knowledge. I will keep pulling these numbers, just like I'm pulling now, from the websites I have to pull them from. You can scream now to high heaven, because once I'm through with this one, I'm downloading the audio from this live video, and I'm going to post it in my podcast as a special episode. And I'm going to give a special episode to Patreon from people that pay to listen to my extra content. You can find me at Ridge Runner Studios on Patreon, and it pays a monthly subscription fee, but there's a lot of back insight stuff that I don't talk about on the show that I talk about on there. So it gives you insight to the studio and what I do actually, how my thinking process works. The feds don't take enough action against these. To me, they have these elder abuse laws, and one of them is neglect. To me, the facilities should be held if their staffing does not meet the minimal standard of care that's currently in place. And if the residents they're looking at when they're surveying the units, if the residents they're looking at don't look like they're taken care of, it should be automatic abuse. And if any deaths have occurred in that year, there's your charges. Because remember, there's no statute of limitations on murder. And let's get these ADAs to holding who's truly accountable for the mistakes that happen in these facilities because of the low staffing rates. And that'd be the owners and the operators of these facilities. If we don't start holding those cats accountable for what they're supposed to be doing for everybody, then we as a people are not any better. You politicians ain't any better than anybody else. And I have absolutely, it's driving me crazy because these are simple things to do, but nobody really wants to take the time to do them, and they don't want to hold anybody accountable because the money's paying the politicians to create them loopholes so they can get around it. And then you've got these buildings that are what we call yo-yo compliant. That means they get better for a little while, then they go back down. They get better for a little while, then they go back down. And this continuously happens year after year after year. I've seen it. And when you'll start noticing, especially in a certain area, it usually follows an administrator. And they run him off because it got better and they became responsible for more stuff, or it's just time to move on. They have goals they have set, and they go set these goals, and it's time to move on and help another place and help another place, hoping that the facility that they just left will keep it up, but they don't. They never do. As soon as that person leaves, they go, let's start cutting. We're going to cut as much shit as we can while they're gone. And then you re-bring in and rotate all of your staffing out, and then who's holding the bag? The residents. These facilities are continuously and routinely non-compliant, whether it be the yo-yo factor or the every year factor. These facilities have business practices that's inconsistent with the law, people that treat Medicaid patients differently than they do Medicare patients, and that means you're putting these hallways here, these are all our Medicare, these are all our private pay, and you're supposed to mix them in so nobody gets any better treatment than the others. They're not doing this, and they're not being held accountable for doing that. They don't, CMS don't recognize it as a violation anyway. And if they do, they just don't impose anything. They don't say anything about it because, when you're in Rome, you do like Romans do. Law, rules, regulations with each other is about to get everybody in a business to where we're fixing to collapse on ourselves and nobody's doing anything about it. Period. Talk about these industrialized medical complex nursing homes. If you've never worked in acute care in a hospital, specifically in ICU, you get these patients occasionally because it is industrialized, and we call it ICU psychosis. My nurses that listen to this know what I'm talking about. Or you get hospital psychosis, whatever they want to call it. Now we've got this thing called COVID psychosis, where the COVID makes them so out of their mind they get very violent because they're confused, because they can't process their thought processes right. Nursing homes were built looking like a hospital, and then the CMS says, oh, you're supposed to give it like a home-like environment in this hospital, in this square hospital room. We want you to decorate it, but you only got a room so big. It's almost like a warehouse of old people because of these floor plans and its architecture. Because, you go into a nursing home, it's one long hallway, and there's stuff on the right-hand side of the wall. in the hallway, and all the rooms are across from each other, and one side's even numbered rooms, one side's odd number room. There's 2 rooms and a curtain in there. There's 2 dressers, 2 TVs, two of everything in there, and it purely gets crowded. When you have a real emergency in a nursing home, you got to move all that crap out of the way to be able to do it. There's models of nursing homes out there that really, really work. One that I'm super excited about is called a greenhouse model. It's a complex, industrial complex. You got small scale, they look like little houses, duplexes or quadruplexes, really. They might have anywhere from 6 to 12 adults in these places. They each get a private room with a little stand shower in there. They can have a room of one that's in Arkansas that I've been to. They've got a room, they call it the swimming room, the swimming house, the pool house, I think is what they call it. And they've got hot tubs in there. And they can take these little old frail ladies and get those lifts and turn them and set them down in these individualized tubs with those little doors on it. And they can get the water to a certain temperature, and then they can put them in there and let that warm water circulate like in a whirlpool, and get their ligaments and all that stuff softened. And when they're in these little pods, that's what I call them, these little pods of 6 or 8 or 10 people in there, and they have the same nurse and the same CNAs, and they do everything. There's no way to sustain like that. Yes, it is, because you would actually have to take your dietary people and your housekeeping people and send them to the CNA class so they can become CNAs. And then they can just take care of the residents in their little houses, and they can cook and they can clean, and the nurse can walk around and give their medicine and make sure they're getting their medicine. Then you start having like a home-like environment where they see the same people every day, and they get more comfortable, and they'll talk more, and you can find out more what's going on, and you might get ahead of problems with that patient that you're not having. And until you do something like that, and you consistently have the same people and the same amount of people taking care of whatever your census is in your building, and in this greenhouse model of long-term care that's coming out now, that's appearing to be super efficient, saving money on the end, then you can invest more in your staff. You can give raises. You can get better insurance systems. You create jobs where there weren't no jobs. Now, I understand in this economy, it's probably not a good idea right now, but I mean, if the federal government comes up and says, this is where we're going to, you've got 5 years to get your building redone. Some of these pieces would combine and build these huge campuses of houses where you can go to building your mom's in house A, your dad's in house B. You can have a married dorm where the families can go together, then they all in there together, and they do their outside activities from their buildings together as a unit. And then you can fix all of these people that have these special requests. So I want my shower I want to take my shower at 7:30. Well, when you reduce down how many people you're taking care of, you can schedule your showers any way you want to. If you got 6 people, you've got 6 to do, and you've got 2 today and 2 tomorrow, and 2. You might can get them all done one day in a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. You might be able to give them one every day, and be more like it is at their house, at their home, really producing the home-like environment. A, the government says we have to do, and B, that's what they're craving. They don't want to move out of what they've known as their home for years and go into this industrial complex and be told when to eat, when to drink, when they're going to get changed. If they soil their pants, they can't get changed now. Get passionate. Sorry about that. If we're going to change this system and we're going to go back to these greenhouse things and we're going to do what we have to give everybody from beginning to end a voice in what's going to happen next. Hospital discharge planners, hospital staff members, family members, even the residents themselves. We all got to hold ourselves at a higher standard now. It's time to quit coming up with excuses and just change the entire culture of nursing home care. It's been kept out of the system light for so long, and nobody talks about it. And when they do, you get and know exactly what's going on. We're not taking care of the people that took care of us when you break it down. And that should have everybody, from even the president, yes, I said it, the president, all the way down the spectrum. And the people that worked in the healthcare industry, and you know what I'm talking about is true, don't stay silent about it. You're going to be old one day. My kids pick on me all the time about I'm going to be the one that's got dementia in the nursing home, and I'm going to go up front and I'm going to grab their survey book that tells everything they did from the front, and then I'm going to go walk into the administrator's office and run him out and sit down and start taking over running the nursing home. Because I am super passionate about this stuff, y'all. I see the big picture here. I was mentioned on a podcast this weekend about what you got, and the guy said there's 5 of these podcasts out there. They're kind of underground podcasts. And I really realized, and I know by the kind of people that I'm talking to, that I was kind of on the flip side of everything. And I got that. And I understood that. And that's fine with me. If they want to call me an underground podcast that's making traction, I will absolutely take that as a compliment, because it didn't start out this way. I just started out to try to find something to do that I was passionate about, I could talk about, and everybody would, kind of listen. I had no idea it was going to be like this. I really didn't set out for this. But I didn't set out to be a nurse either. I set out to be a school teacher. And nursing's where I ended up. And I've got friends that went into their life. I got one friend that was started out as a PT, physical therapist, and she ended up being a nurse. I got one friend that is an actual doctor that he was, well, okay, let me rephrase that. He's a doctor in another country, and his stuff wouldn't transfer here. So he took 1 year and challenged, because he's an immigrant and a doctor in another country, he's now an RN. So you have a cluster of things going on. The things that I'm talking about nursing home is across the board in all medical facilities. It just is. So until we get this problem fixed, and we can't solve it, we got to fix it. We got to change the whole culture of the long-term care industry if we're ever going to get anything done. But I'm getting I'm streaming on YouTube now. I hope that the powers that be that pulled me the last video, that this one is better. And if I get pulled, you'll know, but I'm going to download the audio here in a minute and post it to my podcast as a special edition, and put a ad free on Patreon. And y'all can follow me I'm on a ton of, I've posted them all. I will post them all again on my Facebook feed, in my Ridge Runner Studios page, my Facebook feed. I want to thank Amy from Rockin' Magnolia Customs for sponsoring us. You can hear a commercial on my last couple of podcasts. I will add her commercial in when I download this audio and upload it, because I do the studio work too, which is unbelievable to me. That this is what I fell into as my hobby, but I do love it. If y'all love it, send me a box, send me email. It's Ridge Runner Studios at protonmail.com. All my information's in the links on all the shows. You can get it. Thanks for everybody that's listened to me on Spreaker and iHeart and Spotify. Those are my big three podcast platforms. I really do appreciate it. I thank everybody that joined me tonight. I didn't get any questions. I guess I was answering them as I was going. But I'd like to thank the people that watched. If you catch it on a replay and you still feel like you got something to say it, because I will go back and visit it. I'm working on a different part of a different show now. I've gone into the healthcare, mental health side. I've hit everything on the collapse of healthcare. I got to redo this one because I beat my repeal. I won it. I beat my charge, I guess. I tell you, I never would have thought social media would have jail, but I've been to jail a lot this past couple of years. And you'll hear all of that. I'll be looking for the new podcast, Life Beyond. I'm finishing up some details with some stuff now. And I'm going to be telling my life story, I guess, in nursing. Give funny anecdotes. I'm going to try to get in touch with the nurses that it actually happened with. To just get on and talk about it and reminisce and just break down and just relax. It's probably going to be a language explicit show. I'll just tell you that up front, because nurses are like military guys. We just tell it like it is, and we don't care if it hurts your feelings, and we use any, what's the word I'm looking for? Very colorful adjectives to describe things. But look, I appreciate everybody that joined me. I thank y'all for tuning in. I thank y'all for listening. Keep listening, keep listening, keep listening, and sharing all of my sites, because I grow that way. If you're going on to YouTube, go to Ridge Runner Reports on YouTube, Ridge Runner Studios, and hit the like and subscribe button. Pick a video, just like it and subscribe to it. I've got to get that up over 1,000. I don't care about my page on Facebook growing, but if you'll join my page on Facebook, I will connect you to Rockin' Magnolia Customs, but it'll be at the approval of the administrators over there. But don't just friend me thinking you're going to get in to sell stuff third-handedly, because I'm going to do a hardcore vet of your page on Facebook. To all my friends that see this outside of my Facebook page, if we were friends in the past, send me a like on Facebook. I don't have time to scroll through Facebook like I did. When I do, I find stuff that's funny and I post it, and then I try to go about my day and check everything at night. But I appreciate y'all joining me. I'm excited. On the live next week, I'll have my backdrop ready to go. But y'all take care. God bless. Y'all have a great rest of the week. We'll see y'all Saturday when another episode of Ridge Runner Reports hits the podcast. Y'all go to Spreaker.com and hunt Ridge Runner Studios and pull up my podcast and download or listen to an episode. Y'all have a good night. Have a great week. Y'all take care. Goodbye.